This is the automation zone. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at the scope of a variable in Python. When I say scope, it means where a variable can be accessed from. So let's look at the local scope first. So if I define a variable inside a function, where all can I access it from? So let's make a function, my function, and in this function let us define a variable. So a is equal to apple, and let us try to access the same variable which I've defined inside my function, accessing it inside the function itself. Let me call my function and let me run it. So I get an output apple, so it can be accessed within a function. What if I would want to print, or what if I want to access this particular variable a outside of my function? It should not work. As you see, I get an error over here, name a is not defined, because if I say if I were to access a, Python will not know where a exists, because any command which is written outside the function cannot access any value within the function. Okay, so that said, let's look at the global scope. Global meaning if I write or if I declare a variable outside of my function. So if a is equal to apple were to be defined outside of my function, then it can be accessed within the function as well as outside of the function. Let's run this. See, there are no errors. Apple and apple. The first apple was accessed within the function, the second outside of the function. One point to note is that we cannot change the value. So we cannot change the variable a from inside of the function. So if I just type a is equal to oranges, this will not change the value of the original a. It is just going to create a new variable called a. We are setting it to oranges. We'll print it. Okay. However, this a variable and the a variable, global a variable, are different. So this print a will print apples because it has a global scope, and print a will print oranges, which is called a local scope. Let me run it. Oranges, okay, and apples, global scope. So how is it all going to work? Whenever you try to access something in your function, it is going to first check locally if that variable exists. If it doesn't exist locally, it'll then check in the enclosing scope, followed by global scope, and finally the inbuilt scope. We'll learn a bit about each one of them later. So is equal to apple is my global. I'm changing it to oranges, but it does not change. So how am I going to access as well as modify my global variable? To do that, just use a keyword global a. So when I use a global and I give a variable name, it's going to check if the variable a, in our case the variable a, if it exists in the global scope. If it does exist, then it is going to point to this particular variable here. Hence, going forward, whenever we change the value of the variable a, it is also going to change the value of the original global variable. Let's run this. As you see, orange and orange. So the original value of apple has been changed to orange. Okay. Let's look at enclosing scope. Okay. This is something which is specific to Python, I feel. Maybe a few other programming languages might also have it. This pertains to a function within a function. So let's have two functions, def outer. This is going to be my outer function, and within this I'm going to have another function. We can call it by any names. I'm typing these names for convenience. So in my global scope, okay, I've defined a variable a is equal to apple. Okay, any variable declared, okay, in between my global as well as my local scope is this function right here, okay, is my enclosing scope. So let's take it as oranges. This is my enclosing. Okay, and this is going to be, as you all know, C is equal to my local scope. Let's follow the same example that we had done before. Let's print, print C, print A, print A. I'll have to call the inner function here, and finally I'll go ahead and call my outer function right here. Okay, I'll have to also print A here as well, and print A here. So when I print A here, okay, it basically is going to print the value within the enclosing scope. When I print value here, it's going to print the local, and the value print here is going to print the global. Okay, so global has a value apple, enclosing has a value oranges, and local has a value grapes. Let's run this. So you see that depending on the indentations, okay, each variable will stick to its own scope. Okay, so local will stick to local, enclosing will stick to enclosing, and your global will stick to its global scope. What if my what if there was no value in my local scope? In this case, from local, it'll then go and check to enclosing. So print A is not present in my local, it'll check in the enclosing. Hey, it found A, so it'll print oranges. Let's test this. It has printed oranges. If there was no variable in both my local and enclosing, it will then go and check in global. Let's run that as well. See, all the values are apples. The same thing happened even for my enclosing scope. In my enclosing scope, I did print A. There was no value A because I have commented it out. So it went ahead and checked in my global. So this rule is followed everywhere. Same as before, in case you want to change or you want to point this variable A, okay, to my global, I could have just put in a keyword global A. Now A points to the global apple, and when I change the value of A to grapes, even the value of the global variable A would change to grapes. If I want to change the value to the outer variable, okay, then how do I do that? Instead of using the keyword global, use the keyword non-local. So it'll check for any variable which is non-local. So since this is my local scope, it'll go one step above it, which is my enclosing scope. A is found. This A, my local A, will point to my enclosing A, and grapes is now changed to my enclosing variable A. We run this. As you see, grapes. Okay, so grapes is changed. These oranges are changed to grapes as well. Okay, that's it. The other thing is inbuilt functions. This is something which is tricky, and you all should have an idea of it. When I say inbuilt, I mean to say there are specific keywords, there are specific function names, there are specific methods or variables which are predefined by Python. For example, if I have A is equal to a list, then I can just do print sum of A. Let me run this. I get the value 6. So what does sum do? Sum is a keyword which is inbuilt, okay, and it is a function or method which basically adds all the values in the list. Now sum is called in my global scope. Okay, it could have also been called in a function. So if it's called in a function, it will check for the particular variable sum in my local scope. Not found, enclosing, not found, global, not found. Finally, it will check in inbuilt, and sum is found in the inbuilt. Sum, being a function, performs or behaves as a function. What if I would do something like this? Sum is equal to apples. Now if I were to print sum is equal to A, and if I run it, it will give me an error saying str object is not callable. str object. Why am I getting this error? In this case, I have changed the value of sum called apples. No, I've created a new variable called sum and I've defined it as apples. So now when I call sum in line number 9, it is going to check in local, not present, enclosing, not present, global, yes. In global, I have already defined a particular variable called sum, hence it will not go and check in inbuilt. Although in inbuilt there is a function called sum, it is going to stop at global. It is going to consider sum as a string, not as a function, and then throw you an error. So make sure guys, whenever you are assigning variables, do not assign variables with the same name as your inbuilt keywords, functions, methods, or variables. Okay, if you like the series, do subscribe. If you like this specific video, do like and share. Thank you.